Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. We love to unpack really interesting historical topics,
Mm.
and today we're tackling a civilization that's often shrouded in myth and misunderstanding.
Yeah.
The Mongol horde.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just picture vast stretches of land. You hear the thundering hooves and this massive empire that stretched from Korea all the way to Eastern Europe. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling.
But what's interesting is that image we often have of these chaotic hordes just sweeping across continents, that's not really the full story.
Not even close.
So today we're going beyond those stereotypes. We really want to uncover what made this civilization so sophisticated. And to guide us through all of this, we have an expert on the subject. Welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to dive in.
I'm really glad to have you here. Our main source today is Marie Favre's book, The Horde. Have you read that one?
Oh, absolutely. It's a must-read for anyone interested in the Mongols.
I was so fascinated by her argument that the traditional view of the Mongols, like originating in the east and conquering westward, that's actually inaccurate.
Oh, yeah. That's one of Favo's most thought-provoking points, for sure.
It's amazing.
The idea that the Mongol Empire actually consolidated from the West, it really flips the script on how we usually think about their rise to power.
Yeah, it kind of makes you rethink everything.
It really does. You start to question their origins, their motivations, the complex factors that led to their success.
Right, because we always think of them as these barbarians just coming in and, taking over everything. But it sounds like it's a lot more nuanced than that.
Way more nuance.
But I guess to start with what we think we know,
Hmm.
the Mongols were known for their incredible military prowess, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Creating the largest contiguous land empire in history, that's no small feat.
No, it's a testament to their military achievements for sure, but you have to remember that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
What's even more remarkable is that they did all of this with a surprisingly small population compared to the vast territories they controlled.
So how did they manage to control such a massive empire when they were constantly outnumbered? I mean, brute force alone couldn't have been enough.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. They relied on a brilliant combination of military strategy and what we might call indirect control.
What does that mean?
So instead of trying to directly govern every single inch of their territory,
Right.
they strategically mapped out key areas and established systems of taxation and administration. They were incredibly organized.
So it's more about strategic influence than brute force.
Exactly. They knew how to exert their power without being everywhere at once. It's fascinating.
It's like they were playing a giant game of chess and they were always a few moves ahead.
That's a great analogy.
But what about those sprawling, chaotic hordes we always hear about?
Ah, yes, Hollywood loves to paint that picture.
Are those just a Hollywood invention?
Not entirely. The Mongols were nomadic, that's true. But their movements were anything but chaotic. In fact, those vast encampments, we imagine those, were actually highly structured and organized, almost like mobile cities on the move.
Mobile cities. So we're talking families, markets, craftspeople, all moving together across the steppes in this coordinated way.
Think of them as these carefully orchestrated ecosystems encompassing families, livestock administration markets, even places of worship.
It's hard to even imagine.
All moving together in a really choreographed system. This allowed them to maintain their nomadic lifestyle while also managing the complexities of a growing empire.
Right, because they had to have some kind of structure to hold everything together.
Absolutely. Structure and adaptability were key to their success.
That's incredible how they adapted their way of life to accommodate such a complex undertaking.
Sure.
But in this constantly moving world, how on earth did they manage trade? I mean, I can't imagine it was easy to establish stable trade routes when your entire city was on the move.
And that brings us to another really fascinating aspect of Mongol rule. You see, far from being solely focused on conquest, they actually actively fostered and protected trade networks.
Oh, wow.
They facilitated a flow of goods and ideas across Eurasia on a scale rarely seen before.
You're telling me these nomadic warriors were also savvy traders?
Oh, absolutely. Some scholars even referred to this era as the Mongol Exchange, recognizing it as a form of pre-modern globalization.
Wow.
Their vast empire became this crossroads of cultures connecting East and West in unprecedented ways.
So it wasn't just about conquering territory, but about connecting people and cultures through trade. That's amazing.
Exactly. They had a vision that extended far beyond just military domination.
But how did they manage this? Did they just let merchants wander freely through their territory?
Not at all. They implemented these sophisticated systems to ensure the smooth functioning of trade.
Like what?
Well, they utilized written contracts, standardized weights and measures, diverse coinage. They even had glossaries to overcome language barriers. They really thought of everything.
It sounds like they were really ahead of their time.
They understood that for trade to flourish, you needed clear rules, consistent standards, and a sense of security. They provided all of that.
So they weren't just conquering, they were creating an infrastructure for commerce and cultural exchange. It's like they laid the groundwork for a globalized world centuries ahead of its time.
That's a great way to put it. They were visionaries in their own right.
This is making me realize how much our perceptions of history can be shaped by, stereotypes and oversimplification. We often reduce these complex civilizations to a few key events or characteristics, and we miss the richness and nuance of their stories.
It's a trap we all fall into, and that's why it's so important to dig deeper, to examine the evidence, and to challenge our assumptions.
Yet to look beyond the surface.
Exactly, and the Mongols in particular offer such a compelling case study in how a civilization can be both powerful and sophisticated, conquering and connecting all at the same time.
It's truly fascinating how a single deep dive can completely reshape our understanding of the past. But for now, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've uncovered so far. We've learned that the Mongols weren't just these fearsome warriors, but also brilliant strategists, organizers, and facilitators of trade. They adapted their nomadic lifestyle to manage this vast empire. They strategically integrated conquered populations, and they fostered a surprisingly cosmopolitan exchange of goods and ideas. But there's so much more to explore, so stay tuned, because when we return, we'll unpack their unique approach to leadership and delve into the secrets of their incredible communication network, the YAM system.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about how the Mongols, they had this reputation as conquerors, but they were also really good at promoting trade and cultural exchange.
Right, and it makes you wonder how they managed to actually maintain control over such a massive and diverse territory. Like, did they have strict rules?
Yeah.
Did they make everybody follow their customs, their beliefs?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. You see, instead of imposing a rigid, centralized system of rule, the Mongols actually took a surprisingly decentralized approach.
Really?
Yeah, they understood that trying to directly control every little corner of their empire would have been a nightmare.
Right, like trying to micromanage everything.
Exactly, would have been inefficient and ultimately unsustainable.
So they delegated authority.
Precisely, they were smart. They recognized the importance of local knowledge and expertise, so they often appointed leaders from the existing power structures of conquered regions.
Oh, so they didn't just come in and replace everybody with their own people.
Not at all. They knew it was better to work with those who already understood the local dynamics.
That's pretty savvy.
But of course, they weren't naive. They knew they had to balance this decentralization with mechanisms to ensure their overall authority.
So how did they do that?
One of the most important strategies was the strategic placement of members of the Golden Family, the descendants of Genghis Khan.
Okay, so keeping it all in the family.
Exactly. They placed these family members in key positions throughout the empire. They served as both governors and overseers.
So they were kind of like the eyes and ears of the empire.
Precisely. They made sure that local policies aligned with the broader goals of the empire. But it wasn't just about blood ties. The Mongols also had this sophisticated system of rewards and punishments.
Oh, so like a carrot and stick approach.
Exactly. Those who served the empire faithfully, whether they were Mongols or not, they were generously rewarded with land titles, positions of authority.
Sounds like a good incentive.
It was, and on the flip side, those who betrayed the empire or failed to uphold their responsibilities, well, they faced consequences.
So they knew how to motivate people both positively and negatively.
Absolutely. Maintaining order in such a vast empire required a multifaceted approach.
Yeah.
You know what's even more remarkable is their attitude towards cultural diversity.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because you'd think they'd want to impose their own culture on everyone they conquered.
It's actually the opposite. They were incredibly tolerant of cultural differences. They understood that diversity could be a strength, not a weakness. So they allowed conquered peoples to maintain their religions, languages, customs, as long as they remained loyal to the empire and contributed to its prosperity.
Wow, so a very pragmatic approach.
Very pragmatic. They were more interested in a functional and thriving empire than cultural uniformity. In fact, they even incorporated elements of various religions and cultural practices into their own belief systems.
So they weren't afraid to learn and adapt from those they conquered.
Exactly. They were remarkably open-minded for their time. They recognized that a diverse empire required flexibility and cultural exchange.
It really challenges the way we usually think about empires. That they're these monolithic entities that just crush everything in their path.
It's a much more nuanced story. The Mongols were more interested in creating this interconnected network of societies that could all contribute to the strength and prosperity of the empire.
It's an amazing example of how pragmatism and adaptability can be such crucial ingredients for success. But, all of this makes me think about the logistical challenges they must have faced. I mean, how did they maintain communication across such vast distances? It's hard to picture a messenger on horseback going from Korea to Eastern Europe.
Well, that's where we encounter another marvel of Mongol ingenuity, the Yam system.
The YAM system? What's that?
Imagine this, a network of relay stations stretching across the entire empire with these skilled riders carrying messages and goods day and night.
So like an ancient Pony Express, but on a continental scale.
You could say that, but it was far more than just mail delivery. The YAM system was this incredible feat of logistics. It facilitated troop movements, the distribution of food and resources, the dissemination of vital information.
It sounds like the lifeblood of the empire.
It was this constant flow of people, goods, and information that kept everything running smoothly.
It's mind-boggling to even think about how they managed all of that. But with a system like that, I imagine there was potential for corruption, people taking advantage of their position.
Oh, absolutely. The Mongols were aware of that they knew that corruption could easily undermine the entire system, so they put in place very strict oversight mechanisms and a culture of accountability.
Like what kind of mechanisms?
Well, one thing they did was use tamper-proof seals and documentation to track the movement of goods and messages so you couldn't just steal things or divert them for personal gain.
They're clever.
They also rotated officials, transferring them between different regions so nobody could get too comfortable or build up too much power in one place.
So they were really thinking ahead, trying to anticipate potential problems.
They were masters of planning and adaptation. They understood human nature, the temptations that come with power, and they built their systems of governance to reflect that understanding.
It's remarkable how their understanding of human nature and the dynamics of power really shaped their approach to governing this vast empire. But we need to take a short break. When we come back, we'll delve into the lasting legacy of the Mongols, how they shaped the world, and why their story continues to fascinate us centuries later, so don't go anywhere. It's incredible how we started this deep dive talking about these fearsome warriors, and now we're talking about government and communication like that.
Yeah, it really shows how complex they were. They were so much more than just conquerors. They built things, they came up with new ideas, and they helped connect the world in a lot of ways.
But empires don't last forever, right?
Yeah.
So what happened to the Mongol horde? Did their empire just disappear?
Well, even though their political power eventually faded, they left a huge mark on the world. I mean, their influence is still visible today in everything from political borders to art to even the food we eat.
Wait, you're telling me the Mongols had something to do with the food we eat today? Like more than just, meat and potatoes.
Absolutely. Their lifestyle meant that they traveled all over, and that led to the exchange of food, spices, and culinary ideas across huge distances. So, for instance, they were a big reason why noodles spread to so much of the West.
So next time I'm having pasta, I can thank the Mongols.
You got it. It's a fun fact.
Yeah, that's a great one. But I guess the food is just one part of their legacy. What else did they influence?
Well, they were also really important in spreading gunpowder technology.
Gunpowder.
Yeah, and that completely changed how wars were fought in Europe and beyond.
Wow, so they weren't just good on horseback. They were also pioneers of military technology. That's pretty amazing.
It is. And we can't forget their impact on maps and geography. All their travels and meeting people from different cultures allowed them to put together really detailed maps and gather a lot of geographical knowledge, which led to a much better understanding of the world.
It's fascinating how they conquered new lands, but also explored and mapped them and then shared all that knowledge.
Exactly. And let's not forget their artistic influence. Their nomadic way of life led to some really unique art forms like these intricate metalwork and textiles, and all their interaction with different cultures resulted in this beautiful mix of styles. You see elements of Chinese, Persian, and Islamic art all blended together.
So they didn't just like art. They actually got involved in the creative process, mixing different styles and making something new.
Yeah, exactly. The Mongol horde wasn't just this one big force that dominated everyone. They were a dynamic and evolving civilization that took in new ideas, adapted, and then spread those ideas, technologies, and art forms. Their legacy is part of the world today, even if we don't always realize it.
This deep dive has really changed the way I think about the Mongols.
Yeah.
I used to see them as just powerful warriors,
Mm.
but now I see that they were also incredibly intelligent, adaptable, and connected to the world around them.
That's the great thing about studying history. It's full of surprises, things that make you question what you thought you knew, and the Mongols, with their unique blend of conquest and connection, are a perfect example of that.
It makes you think what other historical stories are out there waiting to be discovered and reevaluated.
Exactly. History is never simple. There's always something more to learn, more to explore, and more to challenge.
Very well said. And that wraps up our deep dive into the fascinating world of the Mongol horde. I hope you all enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed talking about it. Remember, history isn't just about dates and battles. It's about the people, their cultures, and the impact they leave behind. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious.